Well, good afternoon. You're watching the midday news on Rajya Sabha television this Saturday afternoon. I'm Ashwarya and these are the headlines. Nearly 6% voting in first 2 hours in by-polls to 3 Lok Sabha and 2 Assembly constituencies in Karnataka. 31 candidates in the fray for polls. That is mainly a contest between the ruling Congress, JDS combined and the BJP. Voting to end at 6 p.m. Scrutiny of nominations for second phase of elections in Chhattisgarh today. Election Commission directs Mizoram government to remove Principal Secretary level officer on charges of interfering with the poll process. Congress and Mizo National Front released manifestos. First high-level visit to Zimbabwe from India in 21 years. Delegation-level talks between Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and his Zimbabwean counterpart in the afternoon. MOUs in mining, IT and power likely to be signed. President Ramnath Kovind inaugurates 2-day-long, one-of-its-kind congregation on education in Haridwar. Says responsibility of teachers to ensure value education in children. Conference to deliberate on ways to improve quality of higher education. And North Korea warns it could revive state policy to strengthen nuclear arsenal if the US does not lift economic sanctions. Stops short of threatening to abandon ongoing nuclear negotiations. Accuses US of derailing commitments for nuclear-free Korean peninsula. First, our big story coming in from Karnataka, where voting for the by-polls to the 3 Lok Sabha and 2 Assembly constituencies is underway. About 6% of the electorate have cast their votes in the first 2 hours of polling, while the Lok Sabha constituencies of Shivamogga, Ballari and Mandya recorded a 7.16%, 4.4% and 4.18% voting respectively till 9 a.m. Ramnagar and Jamkhandi Assembly constituencies have recorded 7.34 and 9% polling. The voting began at 7 in the morning and it will go on till 6 p.m. And among the prominent candidates in the fray is the Chief Minister H.D. Kumaraswamy's wife Anita Kumaraswamy, who is expected to have a smooth sailing in Ramanagara. The by-elections have been necessitated after Yediyurappa and Sriramulu and C.S. Puttaraju resigned as MPs on their election to the Assembly in May this year. By-polls to Jamkhandi Assembly seat was caused by the death of Congress MLA, while Ramanagara fell vacant after Kumaraswamy gave up the seat, preferring Chattapatna, the other constituency from where he had won. And the counting of votes will be held on 6th of November. News from Mizoram now, where the Congress Party and the Mizo National Front have released their election manifestos for the Assembly elections to be held in the state on 28th of November. The Congress has promised to distribute laptops to students who clear the higher secondary school leaving certificate examination and above. And in the manifesto, the party made 21 points of promises, including a special financial assistance to orphans, widows and physically handicapped persons. The Mizo National Front, in its manifesto, has promised to introduce a village-level citizens register if it comes to power. It also vowed to take steps against the illegal migrants. The party also promised for drawing up a scheme of rehabilitation and settlement for the martyrs and their families. And in more news from Mizoram, the Election Commission has ordered the removal of a Principal Secretary level officer in the state on charges of interfering with the poll process. The Election Commission also directed that a Principal Secretary should be relieved of his responsibilities with immediate effect. The order also said that he will not be assigned any work related to Mizoram or deputed to Mizoram till the process of elections is over. The order came after reports appeared in a section of the media that the state chief electoral officer S.B. Shashank had complained to the Election Commission, and according to the EC order, the presence of the Principal Secretary Home in the state government will have adverse impact on the conduct of smooth, free and fair election process in Mizoram. And shortly after this, an umbrella organization of major civil societies and student bodies of the state demanded the removal of Mizoram Chief Electoral Officer S.B. Shashank, claiming that he has lost the trust of the people. Remember, election to the 40-member assembly are slated to be held on 28th of November and the results will be out on 11th of December. And in Chhattisgarh, scrutiny of nominations for the second phase of polls is being held today. The nominations began on 26th of October for the second and final phase elections with the issue of notification. 72 constituencies of the state will go to polls in the second phase on 20th of November. And 18 Naxalism-hit constituencies will go to the polls in the first phase on 12th of November. Meanwhile, the process of nominations for Madhya Pradesh and Mizoram began on Friday with the issue of notification. On day 1, 17 candidates filed their nominations in Madhya Pradesh, and voting for the 230-member Madhya Pradesh Assembly and the 40-member Mizoram Assembly will take place on 28th of November. On to some other news now. President Ramnath Kovind inaugurated Gyan Kumbh, a two-day conference on education in Haridwar today. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Trivendra Singh Rawat and Yoga Guru Baba Ramdev were also present at the occasion. Addressing the conference, the President said that everyone should ensure their participation in the field of education. He added that the purpose of this event is to increase quality of higher education. He said that every child has some talent in him and it is the primary responsibility of the teacher to give education as well as values to the children. About 1,800 delegates from all over the country are participating in the conference. The President will also visit Rishikesh, where he will address the first convocation of All India Institute of Medical Sciences.
उच्च शिक्षा की गुणवत्ता के 3 मुख्य स्तंभ होते हैं: शिक्षक, प्रबंधन तथा विद्यार्थी। विद्यार्थी की भूमिका तो सामान्य होती है, उसे तो केवल शिक्षा ग्रहण करना होता है, लेकिन गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा प्रदान की महत्वपूर्ण जिम्मेदारी प्रबंधन तंत्र से जुड़े हुए लोगों और शिक्षकों पर अधिक होती है। देवियों और सज्जनों, हर बच्चे में कोई न कोई प्रतिभा अवश्य होती है। उस प्रतिभा की तलाश करने और निखारने की जिम्मेदारी शिक्षकों तथा शिक्षण संस्थानों की होती है। उन्हें ये देखना है कि कोई भी बच्चा गरीबी, दिव्यांगता या किसी भी अन्य कमी के कारण शिक्षा के अवसर से वंचित न रह जाए।
And on to news on Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu's tour. Well, he is in Zimbabwe for a 3-day visit in the second leg of his 3-nation visit. This is the first high-level visit from India to Zimbabwe in 21 years. He will hold delegation-level talks with his Zimbabwean counterpart today. Both the nations will also sign several agreements later today, and MOUs including in the field of mining, culture, information and communication technology and power are expected to be signed. India will also undertake upgradation of the Hwange Thermal Power Station for $310 million line of credit. Venkaiah Naidu will also call on the President of Zimbabwe and will also meet the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs. And earlier, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu started his official visit to Zimbabwe by addressing the Indian community in the capital city of Harare. The Vice President said that India and Zimbabwe share very warm and friendly relations. He added that both the nations have inherited a rich cultural heritage which has gained a vibrancy over the years. Though small in number, Vice President recognized the Indian community's contribution towards Zimbabwe's growing economy. He said that Indians here in Zimbabwe bridge the gap between the two nations. Naidu also reiterated that India's economic growth is happening and he urged the Indian diaspora to look at the transformation that India is undergoing and asked them to join in India's journey towards growth and prosperity. He also invited Indians to visit their homeland to witness the fast positive changes that are taking place here back in India.
I am pleased to that Indian community in Zimbabwe, though small in number, is making significant contribution to the progress of this country. As professionals in diverse areas and as entrepreneurs, you also serve as a living bridge between the two countries. Indian diaspora is really playing an important role across the globe. That's why government also is focusing on Pravas Bharatiya Divas. This January we are going to have Pravas Bharatiya Divas in Varanasi this year. So I appeal to all of you who are interested, they can all participate in that Pravas Bharatiya Divas. Feel proud that you are in India, you are a Bharatiya, and feel proud that we have a culture, we have a heritage. You call it as Bharatiya culture, Hindu culture, Indian culture.
And earlier in Botswana's Okavango, the Vice President held a roundtable meeting with the CEOs of several companies, and during the meet he interacted with the businessmen and investors of both the nations. He also called on the President of Botswana before wrapping up the first leg of his three-nation Africa visit.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Friday met CEOs of 26 Indian companies in Botswana. Addressing a roundtable of India and Botswana CEOs, Venkaiah Naidu said he was happy to know that companies operating in Botswana have very few problems. He called CEOs a living bridge connecting both countries.
India's growth now is because of thanks to the initiative of connectivity revolution brought in by late Prime Minister Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So that being the case, I have already suggested to this Vice President, and we will be taking up with the President also now, that they should think of involving rights in expanding railway lines here to take care of the transport problems.
The Vice President said better connectivity is necessary for sustainable development. He highlighted India's outstanding relationship with Botswana while appreciating that the country provides ample business opportunities to Indian investors.
Our farmers should be really encouraged to go to African countries and then take the land on lease and then really cultivate the land and then increase the production. It will be an in-win situation for both for India and African countries like Botswana.
Naidu also invited Botswana and its companies to partner with India. He said India has a whole new set of opportunities that are opening up. The Vice President on Friday also visited the world's largest rough diamond sorting and valuing operation. The diamond trading company Botswana is a 50-50 joint venture partnership between the government of Botswana and the De Beers Group. Vice President Naidu also called on the President of Botswana. During the talks, he said there is immense potential for enhancing India-Botswana economic ties. He welcomed the President's decision to join the International Solar Alliance. Panchanan Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And in midday news, time for a very short break here. We'll be right back with more news. Welcome back. World Bank President Yong has described India's jump in the Ease of Doing Business Index as a historic and unprecedented achievement. In a telephonic conversation with Prime Minister Modi, he congratulated India for the historic rise in rankings. He said it is remarkable that a nation of over 1.25 billion people has achieved a rise of 65 ranks in a short period of 4 years. According to a statement released by the Prime Minister's office, the World Bank chief also said that this has been made possible in large measure due to the unwavering commitment and leadership of Prime Minister Modi. He promised the World Bank's unflinching and continued support to India's initiatives on ease of doing business. And the Prime Minister, on the other hand, thanked the World Bank President for the institution's continued guidance and support in India's efforts to improve ease of doing business. He added that the World Bank's rankings are a source of inspiration for India in its quest to improve ease of doing business. Remember, India improved its ranking on the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business for the second straight year, jumping 23 places to the 77th position. India was ranked 100th last year. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the MSME Support and Outreach Program in New Delhi on Friday. In a big boost to the sector, he announced that the GST-registered MSMEs will be granted loans up to 1 crore rupees within just 59 minutes. And calling it a Diwali gift for the sector, Prime Minister Modi announced a 12-point program to give impetus to small businesses. Here is a report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday launched the MSME Support and Outreach Program in New Delhi, stating that India has become an economic powerhouse because of the micro, small and medium enterprise sector. Prime Minister Modi expressed hope that these small businesses will give a new impetus to the industrial revolution in India.
GST जैसे देश के इतने बड़े टैक्स रिफॉर्म को आपने अपनाया है। आप बहुत समझदारी और बहादुरी के साथ वैश्विक बाजार का भी मुकाबला कर रहे हैं। देश में हुए इन परिवर्तनों की वजह से ही आज भारत चौथी औद्योगिक क्रांति का नेतृत्व करने के लिए अपने आप को सज्ज करके आगे बढ़ रहा है।
Prime Minister Modi announced 12 new measures to give a boost to the nation's second biggest employing sector. He called them a Diwali gift for the sector. The measures include granting loans of 1 crore rupees in just 59 minutes for GST-registered MSMEs, 2% rebate on incremental new loans of up to 1 crore rupees for GST-registered MSMEs. The government also increased interest subvention on pre- and post-shipment credit for exports by MSMEs from 3 to 5%. All central public sector enterprises will have to take membership of the government e-marketplace to facilitate online procurement from MSMEs by various government departments and organizations. It is imperative for government companies to buy at least 3% of their purchases from women entrepreneurs only. All companies with turnover of over 500 crore rupees will have to now come on traded receivables e-discounting system platform so that there is no cash flow problem for MSMEs. PM announced 6,000 crore rupees to create 20 hubs and 100 tool rooms for technology upgradation. MSMEs will have to file just one annual return on 8 labor laws and 10 central rules. Easing compliance with environmental rules, MSMEs will need single air and water clearance.
मिनिमम गवर्नमेंट मैक्सिमम गवर्नेंस के मूल मंत्र पर चल रही है हमारी सरकार। हर कदम पर आपको नियमों के जाल से मुक्ति दिलाने का काम कर रही है। एमएसएमई के लिए मार्केट उपलब्ध कराने के लिए एक और प्लेटफॉर्म सरकार ने विकसित किया है, जेम GEM यानी गवर्नमेंट ई मार्केट प्लेस। जब 2-2.5 वर्ष पहले इसकी शुरुआत हुई तो एक बड़ा मकसद था सरकारी सामान की खरीद में पारदर्शिता लाने का।
To raid the sector of Inspector Raj, Prime Minister Modi announced that inspections of factories in the sector will be sanctioned only through a computerized random allotment. Inspectors will also have to upload reports on portal within 48 hours. Speaking at the event, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said, India will soon be among 3 largest economies in the world. He said in the past 4 years, India has moved from the 9th to 6th position in the global economic landscape. The outreach program will run for 100 days, covering 100 districts across the country. Mohammad Fateh Tipu's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
An ordinance to change the Companies Act to decriminalize minor offences by companies, especially the MSME sector, got the President's assent on Friday. The amendments pertain to restructuring corporate offences under the Companies Act 2013. The proposal to issue an ordinance to amend the Act was cleared by Cabinet on Thursday. The Corporate Affairs Ministry, which is implementing the Act, has been looking at ways to promote ease of doing business as well as ensure better compliance levels. The ordinance will also transfer 90% of the cases to the regional directors under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs from the National Companies Law Tribunals. In August, a government-appointed committee suggested various changes to the Act, including restructuring of the corporate offences and an in-house adjudication mechanism to ensure that courts get more time to deal with serious violations. The committee also recommended shifting 16 of 18 compoundable offences from the jurisdiction of special courts to an in-house e-jurisdiction framework.
कंपनी अधिनियम में अब तक ऐसे प्रावधान थे, उससे जुड़े ऐसे कानून थे, जिनकी वजह से छोटी छोटी मामूली गलतियों का, अनजाने में हुई गलतियां, उल्लंघन से आप लोगों पर आपको क्रिमिनल माना जाता था, गुनहगार मान लिया जाता था। इन छोटी छोटी गलतियों की वजह से कई बार व्यापारियों के लिए जेल तक जाने की नौबत आ जाती थी। उसके लिए तो इज्जत ही सब कुछ होती है। वो बेचारा बाद में कुछ करने लायक रहता ही नहीं, मन से टूट जाता है। छोटी छोटी भूल सुधारने के लिए आपको कोर्ट कचहरी के चक्कर काटने पड़ते थे। इस सब में आपका कीमती समय और पैसा दोनों व्यर्थ तो होता ही था, आपके मान सम्मान को भी गहरी ठेस पहुंचती थी। लघु और मध्यम उद्योगों को तो इसकी वजह से बहुत ज्यादा परेशानी होती थी। मुझे आप सभी को ये बताते हुए खुशी हो रही है, इन परेशानियों से मुक्ति दिलाने के लिए सरकार ने एक अध्यादेश लेकर के आई है। अध्यादेश हमने जारी कर दिया है।
The subscriber base under the Atal Pension Yojana has crossed 1.24 crore mark. More than 27 lakh new subscribers have joined the scheme during the current financial year 2018-19. The Government of India guarantees the pension benefits. States like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra and Karnataka are the top contributors in the APY enrollment. The scheme allows any Indian citizens between the age group of 18 to 40 years to join through the bank or post office branches where one has the savings bank account. All the international news now. The Trump administration is to reinstate next week all US sanctions on Iran that were removed under the 2015 nuclear deal. The White House said that it was the toughest sanctions regime ever imposed on Iran, and they are targeting Iran's energy, shipping and banking sectors. However, 8 countries will not be penalized by the US for continuing to import Iranian oil, which is expected to include India as well. The first tranche of sanctions on 7th of August had targeted Iran's ability to purchase or acquire US dollar banknotes, trade in gold and precious metals, and make transactions related to the Iranian rial, the country's currency, as difficult. The sanctions were promised in the month of May when President Donald Trump announced that the US was withdrawing from the 2015 deal with the world powers to limit Iran's nuclear program. Meanwhile, an Iranian foreign ministry spokesman said that Iran was unconcerned at the return of sanctions. However, Trump has suggested that he was open to a new comprehensive deal with Iran.
That's right. Sanctions start on Iran. They're very serious sanctions. They're very big. They'll be elevated from there. But as you know, sanctions are starting on Iran. And, you know, Iran is taking a very big hit. The country is not the same country as when I started almost 2 years ago. Iran is a much different country since I terminated that deal. That was one of the most ridiculous deals ever made by any country at any time, the Iran nuclear deal. But sanctions very much are elevated as of you know when, next week.
And on to an update on the political crisis in Sri Lanka. In a boost for the newly appointed Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, a lawmaker from the main Tamil party defected to the Premier's side and was made a minister on Friday. The developments come even as President Maithripala Sirisena agreed to summon Parliament on 7th of November for a floor test to end the political turmoil. Rajapaksa claims he now has enough numbers to prove his majority, and at least 5 of the ousted Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe's men have defected to his side. However, Wickremesinghe's United National Party says that they have handed over a motion of no confidence against new Prime Minister Rajapaksa. Wickremesinghe, remember, has refused to accept his dismissal, claiming to be the country's legitimate premier. The president was under increasing political and diplomatic pressure to reconvene parliament after he sacked Prime Minister Wickremesinghe on 26th of October. And North Korea has warned that it could revive a state policy aimed at strengthening its nuclear arsenal if the United States does not lift economic sanctions against the country. The statement released by the Foreign Ministry on Friday evening came amid a sense of unease between Washington and Seoul over the use of sanctions and pressure to get the North to relinquish its nuclear program. The ministry said that North Korea could bring back its policy of simultaneously advancing its nuclear force and economic development if the United States does not change its stance. The North came short of threatening to abandon the ongoing nuclear negotiations with the United States, but it accused Washington of derailing commitments made by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump at their June summit in Singapore to work towards a nuclear-free Korean peninsula without describing how and when it would occur. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Midday News. Thanks for watching.